Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. Originally a high school dropout and raised by a single mom who held 3 jobs, Allyson's environment was not exactly set up to win. But what Allyson Byrd did have working for her, she believed. She believed that she could accomplish anything and everything that she wanted to. And her mother gave her the gift of believing in her too. Her journey is nothing short of fascinating. Celebrated now as one of the world's most trusted leadership advisors and sales experts for entrepreneurs and small business owners, Allyson and her team of masterful facilitators have coached over 3,000 entrepreneurial leaders to create over $105 million in new revenue in just the last 8 years. Her work behind the scenes gives her clients the spotlight they deserve. Join in today and learn exactly how Allyson Byrd levels up and creates everything from nothing. I'm here today with my good friend, Allyson Byrd, who is a sales conversion strategist. She is so uber successful and she has got that contagious energy. When you're around her, you want more of her. And thank you for being here first and foremost, Allyson.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Like, I'm on fire. I'm like, what are we going to talk about?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So you are this huge, huge ball of energy. I just love you. Every time I talk with you, I'm so fired up. I feel so empowered. I feel so on fire talking to you. And you're also so successful. And I just know that that's not who you always were. So could you take us back? I want to know, who were you before all of that?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, let me just say this. I own that I'm ultra successful. And what I believe is that I believe that women of color, I believe that women in my age group, I'm 41. So women in our 40s and in our 50s, the minute that someone gives us credit for what we've created, we almost shirk it away. Like, yeah, but. So I'm happy to share my story of what I came from. And I stand on the truth of what I've created. I have worked my ass off and I've been diligent. I've been ethical. I've been focused and committed, driven and passionate, honorable of relationships, streamlined. I've been disappointed. I've been kicked in the gut, betrayed by partners, lied to by consultants, hired the wrong people, took too long to fire people.
Oh my God, are you reading my background? What's going on? I'm like, wait, I've done all those things.
I mean, it's our story, right? And so I think that the mix of who I be today is what have I been on my journey and on my pathway, to create, and my resiliency. My resiliency muscle is there. So for anyone listening, I love that you're listening in your car and you're listening on the go, but come back to this and listen with a pen and a piece of paper to get the nuggets, the golden nuggets that you need for yourself. So my story is just really simple. I think that it could be summarized in a meme, that I was a girl who decided to go for it. I was legit that girl that decided to go for it. But my story did not start easily. I think what's really funny is if I tell my story around a lot of Latin women, if I tell my story around a lot of Black women, my story doesn't sound odd, that I had a single mom that worked 3 jobs and a dad that was in prison.
Okay, that you say it doesn't sound odd, but it does sound odd to some. So maybe
to some. So if I said it around a collective of this group, this subset, they would go, oh girl, yes, da 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 da.
Wow.
I'm horrible at accents. So that was my version of something. But, when people hear Cardi B tell her story today and all of the things that she went through, well, she grew up in a region of America and she grew up in a demographic of people where it was very common what she chose. So, and if I ask, last year, Natalie, I, with a former NFL player, I bought out a theater for Black Panther.
Okay.
And we took kids from 7th grade, 8th grade, And when I asked them by show of hands, how many of you have a parent in prison, 95% raised their hand.
Wow.
Yeah. So my story of what I've evolved through, dropping out of high school when I was 15 years old, going back when I was 19, graduating when I was 20, going into college and still being confused about who I was and what my purpose strategy was going to be. Nobody was sitting down and having that conversation with me like, let's create a blueprint for your life and let's build success step by step by step. So for people who look at my life, I love for you guys to look at the history, but all of us have a story that we choose to change our statistic. So today, to be in the top 3% of North American earners, to be in the top 1% of African American female earners, and to lead a multi-7-figure sales agency, and to work with leaders that are 7 and 8 figures, it is shocking. And I never thought I would be here, but I always knew I would be somewhere great.
So, okay, so taking me back, because your mom's working 3 jobs. Your dad was in prison.
Yeah.
Did you have role models that believed in you? Or was it fully coming from yourself? Like, what did your parents say to you? Who was in your life telling you can be anything?
You know, I think the interesting thing is, so all of my role models really came from the church, which was why success was difficult at the onset, because church has its place, and the place of church is spirituality and groundedness, but the place of church is not really your rise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I'd never heard it really explained that way.
Yeah, and that's so for me. So hopefully no one bombards your inbox on that, like, well, wait a minute, sister girl. But church was a place that taught me groundedness and taught me an honoring of an entity outside of me.
Whoa, okay.
So it wasn't until, and so that was the thing that got me. You have a saying, Natalie Jill, in your teachings that I admire that says, your best thinking got you to where you are today. So my best thinking got me to a community that said, what you crave external of you is actually within you.
Ooh.
And the minute that I learned to go within, I realized I no longer had to live a life without anything.
Wow. What was did you have a relationship with your parents? What did they speak into with that?
Yeah, I did not have a relationship with my father. Okay. The last time I saw my father, I was 4 years old and he was in prison, and I saw him in prison. So that's the only vision that I have of him. And he told me the last time I talked to him, I was 12 years old, and he said, I'll call you back. And I'm 41 today.
Whoa.
And the phone has never rung.
Wow.
So, and there's never a time I say those sentences and my heart doesn't race. It's racing now. It just, I don't understand leaving me. I don't understand being unnecessary to someone.
Yes.
I don't understand being negotiable to my father.
So just knowing how successful you are and how driven you are and how just you're constantly adding value to so many people. I've witnessed it in so many instances, and I haven't even known you that long, and I witnessed it. Do you think part of that is that looking for approval, or showing somebody, like looking for that, dad, look, I've done it. Like, dad, look, I can do it.
I don't think that. No, I don't. I think that shows up. I think that shows up in my weight, and I think it shows up in my dating. But, and so I think it shows up in the men that I choose and the men that I don't choose.
Okay.
The men I'm available for, the men I'm not available for, you know, and, but I don't think that in my professional world so much that I think I protect that. I've mastered that area. But don't ask me about the busters in my Tinder app. It's a whole situation.
That's funny. And the reason I ask that is I tend to see a theme, especially with women, that it's like, especially women that are super driven and adding value all the time, that there is some type of story with a dad that they didn't have what they wanted from the dad. And that's why I asked if there was a connection with that it creates a drive sometimes. Maybe not. I
think what's real for me is that I have a challenge with 2 things: being accepted, which is why it shows up in my dating space, that I typically choose men who make me fight for acceptance.
Okay. Wow.
And then I have a challenge with receiving. receiving. So this is an adult podcast, right?
Yes.
So I dated a guy a few years ago, and I had never been introduced to multiple orgasms in my life. Never had them. So I heard they existed, but I was like, nope, if I get one, I'm lucky, I'm out, deuces. And so here I was having this experience with this man that had come into my life, and I had done my job, and I was like, whoa, on to the next thing. And he's like, no, we're not done. And I said, what do you mean? What's about to happen? And he's like, I'm not done pleasing you. And I'm like, well, what you about to do? And I mean, literally, I'm having this discourse, and he's like, first of all, you're going to stop talking, and you're going to let me lead.
Wow.
And this is how I think about what would have happened differently if I would have had a father. And so he says, you're going to let me lead. And he said, and then now I'm tense. Yeah. Now I can't receive. Now I'm like,
right.
What's happening? I got to be in control.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, all I want you to do is think about relaxing. And now the only thing I couldn't do was relax.
Yeah.
But he coached me through the process of getting out of my head, even bypassing my heart and getting into my soul.
Oh, that's wild.
And when he did that, I had the most beautiful sexual experience and sensual experience, an experience of being seen and someone being patient, acknowledging and caring enough about me to say, I'm not going to rush past this moment. The story that I tell myself is, had I had a father, my father would have loved me that way, right? I get that I told the story through a sexual lens, but I feel like that was a moment where I experienced genuine love and acknowledgement. And I feel like that's how I finally evolved into my relationship with divine mind, source, what people would call God, is that sit back and relax. There's more. There's multitudinous thrill in life.
And someone could just take care of you just because.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what about your mom? And did she speak into like, you're going to do great things?
Always.
Or what? Okay.
Always. My mother, she ascended in 2015, and I say ascended instead of died because that's my experience of her. And she chose that graduation. And to this day, she's still the number one favorite in my phone because she was my super fan.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're so blessed to have had somebody that believed in you, because I think having someone believe in you makes such a powerful difference too.
Yeah, you say that all the time, and it's real. People ask me, they email us and email my help desk and my care center, and they say, what do I do if my family doesn't support? And that's the one question I can't answer well, because my family has always loved me. They haven't always been perfect. They weren't rich. They weren't affluent, but they gave all that they had, and that was what I needed. Yeah. I grew up loved, supported, acknowledged, and believed in.
Which is amazing.
Amazing.
So you said that kind of in your culture, it was almost like normal that like your mother works 3 jobs, dad's in prison. Wasn't. So did it ever occur to you that you weren't set up to win, or did you have to create that? You just knew you were?
No. It never occurred to me that winning was a good idea.
Oh, okay.
Surviving was what we did.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how were you able to make the switch from surviving to I'm going for it? Like I'm going to be in the top 3%. Like, was that a vision? What was...
Somebody invited me to a training, kind of, if anyone's ever heard of Landmark or like an EST or something like that. Someone invited me to that when I was 21, and it was $400 to go. And I was about to turn 22. So I asked 10 people that I knew loved me for $40 for my birthday.
I love it.
To go.
Very creative.
And so at 22, and no one, by the way, understood paying $400 to go to a class.
Yeah.
Like they were like...
That was like unheard of.
It was unheard of. And so I went, and for 4 days, I was immersed in this conversation that I could be anything I wanted to be in the world. I was immersed in a dialogue that I was living a story that I'd written, and I could pick up the pen and write something different.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this that they speak of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is like so in your language now. So it's interesting that was that turning point.
I had never heard it before. And there was a guy who, by the way, has recently ascended. He was my age, but maybe a little bit older, like 5 years. But I remember in that training, he picked me up, put me in his lap, and he rocked me.
Oh.
And he said, for the absence of all the rocking that your father never took the chance to do.
Wow.
And he rocked me in that training.
What an experience.
Yeah, it was.
Wow. So this was the first time that you really felt like, wow, I could rewrite, I could recreate, I can become anything.
Yeah, and then I met someone out of that class who decided they were going to become a transformational coach.
Okay.
And I asked, can I be your assistant? Can I do anything for you? And I started doing any and everything for her just to sit in the rooms where she was coaching and training.
So like a facilitator of that work? Or
she was a facilitator of that work. And so
you could be around it.
I became a puppy dog at her heels. Yeah.
I love that fly on the wall thing because success always leaves clues.
Yes.
And it's interesting. We'll hear people say, I can't afford it or I can't find it, but like it's always there. It's just like you got creative and said, let me assist you. Let me do anything just to be in the room.
I did. And right after that, I decided that I wanted something new for my career as well several years later. And I became an intern for someone who was a top facilitator, not of transformational work, but of business coaching and leadership development. And I worked for her for $25 a week. And a week, $25 a week. So I moved out of my apartment. I sold my car. I asked my brother-in-law if I could live in their mother-in-law's suite. And I lived there. And for 2 years, I served and went everywhere she went. And I lived on a $25 stipend.
I hope everyone is really listening to this because talk about not letting that inner voice tell you no, like, and doing whatever it takes. And how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
Like you were hungry for it.
I was hungry. And that woman, I call her the woman that I mentored under, and she paid me $25 a week. The Apprentice by Donald Trump had just come out.
Okay.
And I wrote a full proposal to her because she was a big time CEO, and I titled it The Apprentice and what I would do for her. And I said, just give me enough to have gas back and forth.
Wow.
So that even tells you how cheap gas was then.
Yeah, you literally just wanted that.
I just wanted gas to get back and forth. I didn't care about anything else. And I knew if I dedicated that 24 months, I would be unstoppable. I just knew it.
And you are.
Yeah.
So it was a smart.
Yeah. I call her the godmother to my purpose. She's still an influence in my life today.
That's incredible. Okay, so how do you go from that? You're hungry, you've got the idea, you got the vision of like, I'm going to be something, I'm going to be successful, I can make anything. But where did like sales come in? Did you know you were a good salesperson, trainer? Like where did that come?
I did. I was an enroller, so this is going to be funny. This is really an adult podcast today,
yes,
by the way.
Absolutely.
The way you're asking me the questions is just funny what's coming up. But when I was 3 years old, I saw that I could sell anything. So I decided I was going to start selling the free newspapers to the old people on the street.
The free newspapers.
And so my cousin says to me, well, why are you selling free newspapers? I said, because they like delivery, they like this. She said, well, you've identified a gap, but it's unethical. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is not sell the newspaper. You need to sell the delivery service.
Oh, that's actually smart.
Yeah.
As you were starting to say that, I was thinking, but it's a service. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's
so she said you need to sell the service. So there I was at 3, at 4, figuring it out. And then when we moved, my mother got some financial affluence. She got a good job and she was able to work a career as an executive. We moved to a predominantly Caucasian side of town. And what the girls always did was they shared chapstick. And I didn't understand that.
Yeah,
I was like,
I don't understand
that's disgusting. They were like, do you want this? I was like, no, I don't. I'll borrow your Babysitter's Club and your Sweet Valley High, but what I will not do is use your chapstick. Did you read those books?
No. Oh, I did read those books, Sweet Valley High. Yeah.
So I was like, I'll borrow those, but not. So chapstick on that side of town was like 80 cents.
Okay.
But on my side of town was 4 for $1.
Ooh.
On my grandparents' side of town.
Okay.
So where it was predominantly people of color,
right.
it was less.
Okay.
So then I would import it. I became an importer.
You were like export, import business. You were funny.
Import, export. So then I would do that. Well, then my grandparents passed away. We ended up moving back to the side of town that was kind of like not the privileged side of town.
Okay.
And my girlfriends on the side they were prostitutes.
Okay.
As young girls. So
Wow.
we were 13, 14.
Was this accepted? Like people thought this was normal?
It was accepted. Yeah. And so that's not across the Black culture.
Yeah.
So don't call up your Black friends like, hey, were you? No, this was my story.
This is your corner and your story.
This is my corner of the South,
Yeah.
right? And so my girlfriend, I will never forget, I asked her, I said, okay, this is how I figured out my profit acceleration method.
Uh-huh.
I said, let me ask you this. How long does it take for you to perform oral sex? And she says, I don't know, about X amount of time. And I said, she goes, why? And she goes, but sometimes it could be longer. I said, no. You got to get tight on this. Because I figured out, and I pull out my Trapper Keeper notebook, and I said, I figured out if you can do X amount in this hour, and I started teaching her financial forecasting.
With oral sex.
With oral sex.
You're so funny. I'm dying right now.
I was like, if you could do it faster, then you can know, and you can also start learning your slow periods and your fast periods.
It's
you can
hysterical.
know in the morning, more men want this. In the evening, they want this. And so now I've got premium hours, and I've got I broke it down. I could see it. And that's when I really realized I had a gift. So I decided, and I write about this in my third book that I did as a collaborative effort with Lisa Nichols, became an international bestseller on Amazon. It's really great. But I write about this, that I decided I was going to become a pimp and a drug dealer.
You are
at that point.
so funny. Okay,
Yeah.
I can't even right now. I'm just glad you're not in prison right now.
I know.
Yeah. So clearly you had business savvy.
I had business savvy.
Maybe not applying it in the right spots. Okay, so how did you? Yeah,
can I just say this? There is a scripture in the Christian text that says the gift and calling of God is without repentance. And what that means to me is that whatever your gift and anointing and meaning and purpose is in the world, it's non-negotiable. Your circumstance determines how it's used.
Interesting. So if you're a teacher, but how you use that can change.
Yeah. So I heard a mentor say this a long time ago, that when you're introduced to something greater, you will drop something lesser.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And so the moment that I got into greater spaces, I dropped lesser, and lesser for me were, unethical,
pimping newspapers,
like all those different things. Like the minute someone showed me, do this, and they kept showing me a different circumstance, my gift became better.
Interesting, because you think of a lot of criminals that are in prison, right? And that they're actually very smart.
Very smart.
They just put it on the wrong thing.
Wrong circumstance.
So it's actually an interesting statement and observation, because had they had the right people in their lives or the right mentors, that could have been a very gifted
changes.
Yeah.
And if you ask my staff today, I'm so hypersensitive to certain things. It's almost like I have PTSD from that season of life as a teenager without ethics and without morals. And so in this life that I'm in, I'm so my contracts are grid. I mean, the ink, people always say, what was the first thing that you hired? I used to tell people it was social media because it was smart, but what was true was an attorney. And I wanted to make sure I was it wasn't to protect the business. I wanted to protect me, because I just was becoming my highest self, and I just had, PTSD from that past time. But
but I hear in your, really, you were doing the best you knew to do.
Best I knew to do.
That's all you knew. That's the opportunity that was on your streets.
Yeah. And that's what people do. They do the best that they can do in the situation and circumstance. And so I think that our responsibility in life is to look, how do I get to a higher level of circumstance?
Wow. Okay. So how does it go from chapsticks, oral sex, and newspaper hustling to old people is what you said? How does it go from that? So you get this realization that you were learning something else. How does it go from that to now? Because this is a big leap here.
Oh my God. Man, so
and also explain, like, because were people saying you're an awesome salesperson, or were they saying you're an awesome hustler? Like, what was the word that was being used, or how would you have described your skill set?
People would always say Allyson can sell anything,
which you can.
They would, they would just go, Allyson can sell anything. So when I decided that I wasn't going to be a pimp,
thank God.
Oh my God! And by the way, my dad, who I was never around, was a street hustler.
Interesting. So you got the gift.
Yeah.
You got part of it.
I got the gift. But I became, AT&T started something in our city, and they started a telemarketing group in our city. And someone said, hey, I think you should go over there. You probably could make really good money. And I went over there and I got that script, Natalie Jill. And girl, I just couldn't do enough with that script.
Wow.
I saw my love language, and I would read that script. And so what happened was I was working at McDonald's.
Okay.
And when I was working at McDonald's, I created a script because McDonald's was trying to sell the
big shake, side of fries. No.
Yes, they were trying to sell the combination.
Yeah.
And nobody would buy combos. Mm-hmm. They would just come through and get burgers and fries and drink water at home or Kool-Aid or whatever. Mm-hmm. And McDonald's was trying to make it popular that you would buy this combo.
Okay.
So I told my manager, I know how to do this. If you let me say it this way consistently. And then I started training people. That's how I started my script writing. I forgot that until this moment.
Wow.
And so then it was from that. And so I knew also that people bought more when I said, welcome to Mickey D's, than when I said, welcome to McDonald's.
I wonder why.
It was something about the association and the relatability that it's, they just connected to it differently. So then I started working for AT&T. Someone told me, I think you could do well there. I made $500 a week starting out, then $1,000 a week.
Wow.
So I was making $4,000 a month as a teenager.
Which was
a lot of money. So I was a high school dropout by that time. Yeah, I was a high school dropout by that time.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So did you have any stories around being a high school dropout, or like, did you have that voice? Because you said you go to like Landmark and you hear this, that you can create anything, but do you have a voice in your head at all? Like, my dad's in prison, high school dropout, because that holds a lot of people back.
Yeah. I just thought I was going to have the most horrific life. Like, I couldn't see my way beyond basic. I really couldn't see it. And so I didn't crave anything but survival. I don't know how to articulate that. I did not crave greatness at all.
Until you did training.
Until I did training. And then after I did the training, then I went and I worked for where I did the internship. Then after I did that, I was picked up by a marketing company out of Utah.
Okay.
And I was meant to sell Hoover vacuums.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be a demonstrator for Hoover vacuums. This is hilarious. I'm going to tell it as concisely as I can.
Okay.
But I was supposed to be a demonstrator for Hoover vacuums. Now remember, I just trained for 2 years. I went from that training. I thought I was going to have a career working for Simon Properties. The mall owner?
Yep.
I thought I was going to have a career doing that. They were going to pay for my education. It was a big deal that I was getting this job. I didn't get the job. It devastated me. And so I just said, forget it. I'm going to take whatever. I took a $15 an hour job that I found on the internet to demonstrate Hoover vacuums at Lowe's and Home Depot and Sears.
Okay.
I have to fly to Ohio to have a training to become a demonstrator. I get there and I'm dressed nice. And remember, I trained for years under this mentor. So I'm dressed differently. I'm like, I walk up to the counter and this guy's standing there waiting and he goes, hey, what are you here for? And I said, oh, I'm here for Hoover vacuums and we're doing this training. He goes, Hoover? He says, does anybody buy those anymore? I thought Dyson was the leader.
Whoa.
And I said, Dyson? I said, tell me why you think Dyson is the leader. So he tells me and I said, let me tell you something about Hoover. And I just start going in on him. I'm just having a conversation. Well, we go on, we laugh, we joke.
Right.
That afternoon, I go to the orientation. I was talking to the senior vice president of the marketing agency.
Wow.
And I had no idea we had flown in together.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got a promotion that day to be an area regional training director.
Because anyone else, most other people would have shrunk down with those comments. Like, who does that? And like, oh, well, I didn't know there was another option.
Yeah,
but
I started selling this guy on a Hoover just standing at the hotel desk.
You took it on.
I took it on. And so I became, and so I moved through the ranks through that. They canceled that project. And my boss said, we can cancel everyone out of this contract except for Allyson Byrd. She just commented on my Facebook recently, and she said she called BlackBerry division and said, BlackBerry, where do you have jobs? And they said, we have jobs in Houston, but not in San Antonio where I live. And she said, can you move the job? And they moved it from Houston to San Antonio and gave it to me. And so I moved through the ranks, and that's how I became really great at sales, at training, at leadership. But I would always tell the backstory of BlackBerry, that Mike Lazaridis had this purposeful intention of connecting family, community. Like, I always told the story differently, to the point where Research in Motion that owned BlackBerry was like, we want Allyson to train. So I trained at the Bulls Stadium. I trained for the top of Best Buy, for the top of all of our partners. Nextel existed at that time. I feel like I'm super dating myself. But so that's how all those iterations of me came out. And then when I left BlackBerry, I knew it was time for me to be a stand for myself as an entrepreneur. And I said, I am not going back. And I did not leave BlackBerry voluntarily. I was kind of building a side hustle. My boss noticed it, and my boss said, what's your highest priority? And I said, writing my book and doing this. And he said, is that why you're late on your reports? And I said, yes. And then he said, then you need to choose. And if you don't choose, I'm choosing for you right now. Wow. And he released me from my position. And that's when I knew it was sink or swim, and I became an entrepreneur.
Did you ever second guess yourself in that? Because I think some people, given that situation, would get scared and say, oh, you're right, I'll stay in my job, or I'll do what I'm supposed to do. Did you ever have that come up, or were you clear?
No. Once I did it, I knew I wasn't going to have a conversation with anyone that I'd failed at it. I knew I would not fail. So
there's an interesting theme I see with you that I in the short time I've known you, and but witnessed so much greatness with you. Like, you have this conviction and belief about you with whatever you decide. And I feel that has served you very well. Like, you don't let self-doubt in. You don't let another voice tell you why you can't. I hear it very strong with you that you literally decide things like, this is happening, and you don't let the option of failure even enter your mind.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. I don't entertain failure. I get afraid. You know, I have resistance. But I always ask myself a better question. Tony Robbins says the quality of life is based on the quality of questions that you ask. Another way that I like to say it is, powerful people ask powerful questions. True. Because questions steer our focus. And what we focus on is what we give life to. Right?
So good.
So I like to take myself through asking better questions. So, Allyson, can you sign a high impact, high influence entrepreneurial leader? Well, that's not the right question, because the answer to that is abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah. Like, the answer to that is yes, right? Yeah. So then it's, well, how do you sign? Yeah. And then it's like,
or what do you look for with
yes. And so then it's like, well, it's not how do I sign? Then it's so then it gets to, well, who do you know that knows who you want to know? Yeah. Now I'm getting to the meat of something. Yes. So I'm always iterative in how I ask myself questions, and I go deeper until I get to the meat, you know?
Gosh, this is so good. You've such a gift for this. How did you get? Okay, so you got this super colorful history of how you got good at what you do in sales. How did you get to focus on right now what it is that you do? Because what you do right now is pretty specific.
Yeah, it's very specific. So what we do right now, I think that the smartest thing, I broke my organization down into 3 areas. And so our highest area is working with high profile, high influential leaders who may or may not know that they're thought leaders. Okay. Right? So someone who knows they're a thought leader is you. someone who may not know that their thought leader could be a dentist.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't know that they have a signature way of doing things that we could then help them produce that methodology.
So you see a gift in them, but they don't see it in themselves yet necessarily.
They see it and they're looking for someone to come and run it. And then my agency, we're the producers behind it. And then we're the agency that sells it. And we just help them stay in their talent.
Yeah.
And then our mid-tier is where I work with leaders who are making 7 figures and they're happy with that, but they want a supplemental or parallel revenue of probably about anywhere from 3 to maybe 700,000 a year additional. And so I teach them how to make 100,000 on demand, high margin money. So I teach them how to do that.
How the heck do you do that? Everyone's like, how does she do that?
And so that's really fun. And so I teach them how to make $100,000 on demand from any platform.
How do people find this?
So how do people find that?
Yeah.
They reach out. They follow me. Instagram. They're like, oh, she's got it open. So I do that 4 times a year.
I hope everyone's taking notes for real because I know like everyone's like, I need to know. How do I do that?
It's really cool. We take 10 and they go through a 9.5 week mentorship. So it's really cool, really rapid. And by the way, it's 9.5 weeks because of the movie from the 80s, 9.5 weeks. I like it. So everything I do has a sexual reference.
Of course it does. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with you, by the way, where there is not a sexual reference.
Literally, I wrote the program. It was 8 weeks. I told my team, hell no, take that out. It's 9.5 weeks just so it can have the movie reference. And then our third tier is everyone that is just kind of a wannabe-preneur. They're an entrepreneur. They haven't really gotten themselves there. We have an academy. We've taken 3,000 students. They've generated, I think now over $118 million collective in the last 8 years.
How can people get that academy?
Yeah, so they just, again, Instagram, Facebook, AllysonByrd.com, Be Unapologetic is my favorite URL that we have because that's my it, right? Be Unapologetic. And so we do quarterly master classes and that's where I teach all that I teach in those elite programs. I teach at master class format there.
Listen, this is serious right now. Everyone listen up close. This woman is such a fire. Like you have to have her in your life. If you're not following her, you are missing out. She's Thank you. It's incredible. Like I don't even know how I got 47 years without knowing you in my life. Like I'm like, wait, there's life before Allyson and there's life now. She's incredible. Like invite her into your life. Like follow her on social media. Do whatever the heck she's selling, buy it.
Oh my God. I just have to say that I realized that there's a cross section between meaning and money. And so many leaders don't understand that it's a both and situation, that you can have a life of meaning and you can create money and you can stir up a movement and that you're worthy of creating and curating and cultivating a movement for the world. And they go, oh, I'll leave that to the Richard Bransons of the world, or, oh, I'll leave that to the, the Carl Icahns or the Oprah Winfreys, or I'll let them be the billionaires and I'll let them do this. And it's like, take it out of that context and understand that you're a non-negotiable, unrepeatable miracle. And you're so unique and so necessary. And the fact that you woke up means you're not at war with anything, that everything is collaborating for your ultimate good. And so align with the collaboration and stop fighting something imaginary or distant or anything that inspires you to feel fearful or less than. Move into a different collective and align yourself with the good of the world.
That's so amazing. And what Allyson said to me yesterday before we were recording this podcast, which is really relevant, is that not everybody has to be their own brand or their own thing. If you've got the gift or the need or the desire or the want, you could do it with somebody else. Like you could be, she calls herself a producer behind other brands. And that's a really, I'd never even heard of people getting the permission to do that, which is amazing.
I think you have we are so resistant to giving ourselves permission to be Noah who builds an ark when there's never been rain. Yeah. And so if you've ever heard that story before, whether you believe in Christianity or not, it's just a yummy story that this guy believes that he hears from God and God says, build an ark because it's going to rain and it's going to rain a lot and I'm going to flood the earth. And rain has never existed. Yeah. Mist has existed, but rain has never existed. And so here's this guy trying to enroll everybody into this ultimate, it's going to rain, it's going to rain. And he's trying to tell them, I heard it. And I want you guys to think about that your vision is your vision. And you can't enroll everyone. The grace of that story is that Noah did not in that story, enroll everyone.
Yeah.
He enrolled who he enrolled, and life continued from that point forward.
So awesome.
Yeah. So whatever your vision is, own it and go forward with the people who are enrolled.
Yes.
But if they're not, release them.
There's others that will
there's
be.
others that will. Yeah.
Okay, I could be talking to you for like the next 10 hours. I have so many questions for you, but I'm going to ask you a final question that I ask everybody on my podcast. Okay. And then I'm going to have you back on like 100 times because I'm like, I want to know everything about you. But okay, so the thing
we're friends. We can just talk on the phone. You're like, but we have to record it.
I know of course. I mean, it didn't happen if you don't record it. It's like the Instagram effect, right? Like you can't work out without videoing your workout. I mean, duh. Okay, so what I want to know now is, and I ask this question to every guest I have.
Okay.
If somebody is listening to this and they're in their own personal rock bottom, whatever that means to them. So maybe they are, whatever that is, it's a health thing, it's a financial thing, they feel that they have no money, whatever is happening that's their own personal rock bottom, their business failed. And they want to start, they get that they need to get out of that. They want to get out of it. If you were to give them 3 pieces of advice to start leveling up their life so they could change and create something from nothing, what would you tell them?
I would say number 1, start with the top 25 things that you're tolerating.
That you're tolerating. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 25 things that you're tolerating.
What would be an example of that?
So if I say, I am tolerating a business partner that doesn't have follow through, then what happens when I tolerate that? What happens is I always feel behind and overwhelmed. Then what do I tolerate? Being behind and overwhelmed. So then when I tolerate that, then I am always in self-doubt. And then what do I tolerate? Well, when I'm in self-doubt, now I'm not creative.
This is so
good. Then when I'm not creative. And so you you could literally start with one thing you tolerate and 24 things can come out of that one toleration.
Okay. You do that so you can create awareness around that?
So that you can create awareness.
Okay.
Because clarity plus intention equals deliberate creation.
Ooh,
so in order for you to deliberately create your life, you must be clear on what you're allowing and you must be intentional on what you're transforming.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
So clarity plus intention equals deliberate creation. So that would be number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, I would grab a piece of paper. I would draw a T. So a line down the center, a line down the center. It should give you 4 quadrants. So human potential experts tell us that there are 4 things that are always on our mind in no particular order. And so that is our health and wellness.
Okay.
That is our finances. That is our relationships, including relationship to self, and then our spirituality. And so those are the 4 things that are always on our mind. In the center, I would draw a circle and I would put EQ, which is your emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And then what you do in those quadrants is you look on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being rescue me 911.
Okay.
5 being I'm perfect, I'm good, I have no 5s.
Yep.
And then I would rank which, 1 through 5 in each category. The lowest 2 are where you should spend your emotional intelligence solving for over the next 30 days.
That's good.
You see?
Yeah.
That's what you should take that EQ center and focus for the next 30 days on the lowest 2.
So good.
So that requires you to be transparent and open with yourself. Yes. Okay. And then number 3, because you asked for 3, right? And so then number 3, I think that, gratitude is the epicenter to invite greatness into our lives. In the brain, neuroscience says that gratitude and fear cannot coexist.
Ooh.
They just can't coexist in your thinking. So if you're suffering anything in your life, you have stinking thinking around it.
Stinking thinking.
Yeah. So get yourself into a space of gratitude. So I would get on Google. I would go to, the Half Price Bookstore, buy a gratitude journal or look at gratitude journal prompts. Because sometimes we don't know what to write in gratitude about. Yeah. The 5-minute journal, you're a super fan of that. So I would get something like that and start being in gratitude on a consistent basis.
So
and so if you do that, you will then eradicate fear. You will basically evict it out of your thinking. And,
I love that.
And that will support you to transform.
Oh, so good. So good. And these are very unique answers. I have never heard of even that first one about the first question you asked.
Would you tolerate?
Yeah, I've never heard anyone bring that up. That's really actually brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, once again, where can they find you? Because everyone, listen, you must follow her.
Yeah.
This is like, what did you say you have? You have the Church of what? What did you call it?
Oh, the Church of Prophet Acceleration?
Yeah, because she literally, I listen to her like she's this top preacher. When I listen to her, I just, yes, Allyson, yes, I
we
get it.
only open the church a couple of times a year, and so it's for thriving entrepreneurs.
Okay.
After I created my first million, I realized I didn't fit in the traditional church sect of dialogue of how people in
not with your
spirituality.
sex talk.
Yeah, not with the sex talk.
Come on.
And wanting the can you use an example of oral sex so I can get it, sir? You know.
I have like all new language from stuff you brought up with the dick tap and whatever else you said.
So we open the church a couple of times a year, but to follow me, Allyson, Allyson, Byrd, Byrd, or you can always go to beunapologetic.com, 2 words, Be Unapologetic. How you can live, how you can move, how you can breathe, how you can walk, how you can talk, you can effectuate change, inspire a movement, make a difference in the world is to be unapologetic. So if you go to beunapologetic.com, you find all things Allyson, and we'll love on you there.
Yes. Thank you, Allyson. Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at NatalieJillFit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.